But I have to put her on the side and worry about the boys. But I have to.
There is no investigation.
Don't say any F's and stuff.
But I have to put her. But I have to put her on the side and worry about the boys.
Welcome, everybody, to the lab. I'm your host, Joshua Diaz, and tonight we have a very special show for you. And earlier I spoke with missing the 19-year-old boy, Dylan Rounds, who is missing out of Utah. Had the pleasure of sitting down with his mother and talking to her. And I'll tell you that the story that you'll hear is an odd one. It's full of head scratchers and flat out basically that these people need help. They need help to find their son. And so I wanted to speak with her, and she was so willing, and we had a great conversation. I mean, as great as you can have for the circumstance, which is obviously a terrible one. So obviously I just wanted to put that out there. So I'm going to go ahead, and it is a pre-recorded interview. Fascinating nonetheless. So we'll go ahead and just jump right into it. All right, Candice, welcome to the lab. I am here with Candice Cooley, mother of missing boy Dylan Rounds, young man, 19 years old. He was last seen Labor Day weekend, and he went missing from what was the name of the farm?
It's in Lucin, Utah.
It's kind of the middle of nowhere.
Yeah. And he was a wheat farmer.
He was growing triticale on this crop, but yeah, it's a form of wheat.
Okay. And so tell me, so the Memorial weekend, things are just normal. When did you realize he's not getting back to anybody?
So like I've said, he spoke with his grandmother at 6:51 in the morning on Saturday, May 28th. And then it was Monday. We'd kind of all put together that nobody had talked to him because he was supposed to get back with his grandmother after he got his seed truck in, and she didn't hear anything. Not really all that unusual for Dylan. He's out there farming, he's doing his thing, but by Monday around 11 a.m. or so, we kind of all put together that nobody had heard from Dylan. And that's when we all headed down there because we knew something was wrong.
And so you head down there, and are you met by law enforcement immediately?
No. So I called law enforcement on the way. What's about a 2-hour drive from where I live. I called them about an hour into it when service was good. We stopped on the side of the road and filed the report. One of the deputies from Box Elder County, he was out there. It was about 3.5 hours after we called. But you got to realize, if you look at a map, this place where my son farms is on the other side of the Great Salt Lake. And the county that it's in is across the lake. So they got to come clear around the lake from Box Elder County. They're hours from where he's actually at. It's like a whole different world. It's quite a ways from any of the county officials. I mean, the closest one's Snowville, and there's nobody stationed there. So it took some time for them to get there, but they did come right out that day, and search and rescue came behind them.
And did they take it as suspicious or foul play?
So let me kind of tell you how the thought we had in our head. So we knew Dylan was moving his grain truck. So it's not easy to get a ride out there if somebody's around. I mean, you got to think he doesn't have anybody around him. So we figured he took off walk-in from where his grain truck is to where his camper is, which is about 5 miles in between. So we're thinking, he's out there. He fell in one of the washes, broke a leg, snake. Like, there's all these possibilities. At that point, that's what we're thinking. Dylan's out in this 5-mile radius between his grain truck and his camper. It was nothing for the kid to take off walking, moving equipment, stuff like that, where he's kind of on his own. It was when we found the boots that should have all changed. Mm-hmm. And the boots were in the opposite direction of his camper.
How long after you got there did you find the boots?
Search and rescue got there. So me and my husband were on the scene approximately, 2:30, 3 o'clock. Justin, Dylan's father, and my daughter, they showed up not long after us, and the grandparents. Search and rescue got there between 4 and 5. I want to say they found the boots between 6 and 7.
And it was reported that there was a drop of blood found on the boots.
Well, that has been a really, really bad deal, because I was told by one of the detectives on Thursday, which would have been June. I put my calendar so I keep my dates right. June 2nd. He said to me, "Did you know there was blood on Dylan's boots? They're at the lab being tested." I seen the dark spot. The night I seen the boots, I seen the dark spot. I kind of chalked it up, maybe hydraulic oil. Those Georgia boots and the type of leather they just soak that stuff in. So, I didn't really chalk it up to anything at the time. Well, that's when, so I'm like, okay, they're getting tested. They're at the lab. That's what we need, right? Well, then it was Saturday, which would have been the 4th. I found out I was lied to by the detectives, and the boots had not been put in processing. They were in the back of the SUV saying they were being held in case cadaver dogs needed them. And we all know cadaver dogs do not need the human scent. That's only trackers. So the boots actually did not get to the lab until June 6th, a full week after they were found. A full week.
Yeah, inexcusable.
Absolutely.
Wow. I mean, that's just, I've never, like I told you, I've never heard of that. You would think that as soon as those are found, the boots are found with the blood. The first thing you do is we got to identify whose blood this is.
Well,
is it
Yeah, and our biggest thing was is as soon as the boots were found, everything should have been taped off and processed, right? Like, okay, the kid's missing. Here's his pattern. Here's his boots. We need to process the grain truck, the camper, the pickup, the whole area. That has still not been done.
Yeah, you know what I would think is, which is really odd. As soon as you find the boots, there's no reason for the young man to be out in the wilderness, basically like that, with no boots for any explainable reason other than something happened.
Correct.
And I think, as you mentioned as well, and we can talk about the truck a little bit, where the boots were found about 100 yards from the truck. That the seat was scooted up. How tall was Dylan? How tall is Dylan? Sorry,
Dylan is, I know, I understand. Dylan's between 6'10" and, 5'10" and 5'11". I am 4'11" and a half. Don't forget the half.
Okay. And could you sit in that truck and reach the pedal the way it was?
I could have drove it clear back to Eastern Idaho and not had to have adjusted it.
And there's no way that Dylan could sit like that.
He wouldn't even be able to get his knees in. He's all leg.
Okay.
His knees wouldn't even fit in between the steering wheel and the seat the way it was positioned.
Did he have a social group?
Yeah, Dylan, he had JD, we've used that name a lot, and some other friends that he palled around with snow machining and stuff in the winter in Eastern Idaho. In Montello, he'd hang out, go to the cowboy bar, get lunch. So it's a bar restaurant, and it's the only thing out there within, almost 100 miles. So, he would go in and socialize, but he was more, in the summer, it was more focused on work. He wasn't, if he was working for you or doing custom work for you, or you were on his farm, that was his summer social group. His winter social group was his friends in Eastern Idaho that, like I said, he'd go snow machine with, or he loved to ski, stuff like that in the winter. But summer was pretty much all work.
Yeah. Wanted to be a farmer from a young age.
Yep. Oh, he just loved it from the very, very get-go. I mean, I've put up the pictures and I've given the explanations on Facebook so people can understand, this kid, this is what he did. This is all he did. I mean, you got a kid, like I said, that's grown his own sweet corn crop on his great grandpa's farm at the age of 10 to sell it under the overpass. It was just his passion.
Where did that come from? I mean, I understand you guys are kind of from, that walk of life, but for him to embrace it the way that he has is something special. There's not a lot of young men that are willing to roll their sleeves up anymore.
No, he was, from the time he could stand up on the front seat of a pickup, and even before that, he would go around with his grandpa and his dad, Justin, and he would farm with them all day. He would nap.
Farmers as well.
Yeah, they're farmers. He would nap in the pickup. He would everything. And they would bring Dylan home to me, or if they were doing something that Dylan couldn't join them with. And it was a screaming battle with a 2-year-old because he couldn't be on the farm. I mean, that was all, it's like a lot of people say, some people are born to be farmers, and that was Dylan. I never realized it. I'd heard that my whole life growing up in a farming community. I was like, whatever, you just pick your, but no, this kid, I mean, he just, that's all he wanted to do from the time he could express his emotions to you on where he wanted to go. That was it.
What a different soul, that just awesome.
It really is.
Look, I got a couple boys that would look at a mound of dirt and walk to the other side of the road to avoid it. So absolutely hardworking young man. And I've seen the photos, and I saw a photo that you put up, and it was quite cute when you said that, when he was playing baseball, that you knew that baseball wasn't going to be his future. Farming was for him.
Yeah, that was the only year Justin or either one of us ever, it's like, no, we're not even going to waste our time putting this kid in sports. Because
did he not enjoy it at all?
I think he had I'm sure he had fun. He was only, 5-6 years old, but he didn't just had no interest in it. You know, he was more interested in like the dandelions and the weeds that were growing on the field, and like, you need to kill these. These shouldn't be in your grass. Then he was
tractor out here, please.
Yeah. Then he wasn't the ball coming at his head. Like he just, that's just been his thing.
Oh yeah, that's
you know, it's like I've said, every year the boys, him and his younger brother Colton, you know, up until the last couple recent years when they've been busy actually working, they plant my Mother's Day garden of flowers, and I couldn't participate, and not because it's just because you're not doing it right, Mom. That's not right. That's not deep enough. This one can't be by that one. And so I'm like, okay, I'm out. You guys do it. You know, it's just
what a young man. So tell me about the you said that the truck appeared to be power washed.
Yeah.
How do you feel about it? Is that something that you still feel has happened?
Yeah. Oh yeah. Yeah. And it's very disturbing because, you know, Dylan wasn't big on washing his pickup. Dylan wasn't materialistic that way. I mean, he gets this 2015 nice Ford, all the bells and whistles, and it's been beat up so bad on the farm. Like, people look at it and they're like, why wouldn't you take care of it? And to Dylan, it's a tool, right? It's a tool. It's not I have a nice pickup. It's I need something that runs and can do its job. So once we kind of stepped back and got our heads leveled and realized we weren't getting a lot of help from law enforcement, and wrapped our heads around what was going on, and noticed that, it's like, that makes no sense. We had a couple out of Utah come forward that had been out there and caving that weekend, and she sent me pictures, timestamp pictures of what it looked like that morning that Dylan supposedly took his grain truck in. And there is no way there wouldn't be ruts. There is no way there wouldn't be tracks. No exhaust or no mud on the exhaust. When you're driving in terrain like that and it's muddy, that's one of your biggest things that gets caked up. Your exhaust, your undercarriage, you know, it flips up on the side, it's caked in your rims, and that mud's a very sticky. Well, the couple from Utah, like how they explained it's perfect. It's like gorilla poop.
Mm-hmm,
It sticks to everything. The only place there was a trace of that on his pickup was in the front wheel wells. Like they hurried up and washed it and forgot the front wheel wells.
Yeah, they didn't get the undercarriage. Yeah,
They got most of the undercarriage and the exhaust, but those front wheel wells they overlooked. And then with having no tracks of that pickup coming in or out, and I'll tell you a little bit so your viewers, your listeners know. So that desert soil, if you're up on higher ground, which is where Dylan's pickup was parked, it's up a little higher. So everything runs off of that. It doesn't absorb water like most of us are used to, who aren't used to deserts like that. It just runs. That's where you get all your washes and, you know, all that, because it all goes into one place. So after a rainstorm like that, where Dylan's pickup was parked, that can be dry and it's almost hardens like cement, and then the ground cracks, you know, within probably 8 hours. And you could drive up on that without leaving tracks after that rainstorm. Like, the ground hardens that fast. But where Dylan had to pull up in, so there's no tracks behind. Like, it would leave tracks if he pulled in and out when it was raining. But like I said, you got this short amount of period before the ground dries. But where Dylan was up on a hill, everything pulls down and you got this big puddle. Well, when myself and my husband, Justin, my other daughter, when we pulled in on Monday night, it was Monday evening, we finally went to the camper after we dealt with search and rescue. We were still leaving tracks. That's how much it rained. We still left tracks into Dylan's place. So there's no way that pickup, unless somebody pressure washed out the tracks too, could have got up on there. Does that make sense? Like, it doesn't add up.
Basically, they went behind. They went behind and covered the tracks up.
That's my feeling, because they pressure washed the truck. You could see where, like, there was the drip marks from the tailgate and the fenders and stuff, you know, after you wash something, where it sits and drips in the same place. But the area that they would have had to clear the tracks that didn't pool in water, I want to say it's probably about 25 feet is it. Dylan has a pressure washer on his farm. It would be nothing to take those tracks and just, you know, wash the pickup and just There you go, because it's on the harder part, so the tracks aren't going to be deep and rutted as he comes up in. And then the rest of it, where it's below, where the water more puddles, before we realized this, before we actually came, started looking, there had been so many people in and out of there because they never taped it off. There was no way for us to tell if Dylan's pickup had drove through it, because there was probably 30 people, including the sheriffs and the detectives, that have drove through that spot. So
when this is found out, when you see the truck, it's power washed, there's no tracks, now you have boots. What is law enforcement saying now? Like, at this point, are they like, this is suspicious, we believe foul play, or no, there's still just him missing?
Yeah. So the frustrating part with law enforcement is there was a lot of times we'd go 2 days without hearing from them. And then Justin and I would both call and scream and throw a fit. And then somebody'd show up and they'd try to appease us. And then it would be the same thing. I mean, you take on, let's see, the day our big search was, our first one was Saturday, June 4th. We probably had between 250 and 300 people out there. We had no assistance from Box Elder. Nothing. They didn't help us organize the search. They had one officer out there. He stuck around for about an hour and a half, and then he left. We had one of their search and rescue sheriffs out there. He was awesome. He stayed all day, but he was out searching places on his own. So we have all these people trying to organize and coordinate this search, and we have no help. Not only do we have no help, but do you know how it looks to the people who come out and search and you have no direction from law enforcement? They don't even make a presence.
Yeah. I mean, it's kind of an unacceptable situation.
And then from there, and then the 5th, I asked about taking the pickup home, and they said yes. I talked to him again on Monday the 6th and kind of chewed some butt. And then we pretty much went from the 7th to the 11th with absolutely minimal contact, no information, nothing on a plan, nothing said what's going on, nothing. That's why when I kind of blasted Elko County Sheriff's Department and they reached out to me on Friday the 10th, I sat with them for 4.5 hours. And I mean, even the sheriff, and we went through everything top to bottom, and they have been offering assistance. Box Elder has not been wanting to take it. Idaho State Police have been offering assistance. Same thing. It's all been declined. So on the 11th, and I don't know if any of your listeners have watched it, but when I did the Fox 13 news interview and kind of blasted him, I was reached out to by the sheriff's wife and the detective within about 7 minutes of that airing.
Mm-hmm.
And now it's like they're back active again, but active doing what? You're not talking to us. We have information. We need to get out to them. They haven't interviewed myself. They haven't interviewed his father. They haven't interviewed my husband or the grandparents that are always in constant contact with Dylan. They have not interviewed a single one of us.
Wow.
It's absolutely unexcusable. And I've told them from the get-go, I am putting my emotions aside. My angry mom emotion is out, and I will deal with my other emotions when I find my son. But I keep telling them I'm fact-driven, and you are not going to sweep me under the rug. I am not going to be silent about how you are handling this. You will not appease me until I have the resources, and you guys do what you need to do to find my son. I am not the person you're going to silence.
Right. I unfortunately follow a lot of these cases and talk to a lot of parents, and you're about one of the most driven ones that I've seen and talked to. And Dylan is a lucky boy to have you on his side, because this is what you got to do. You got to shake the trees. You got to do media. You got to do everything that you can to shake something loose, to, like you said, you're doing media and then you're getting contacted by law enforcement afterwards. But, it shouldn't have to be that way. But sometimes, unfortunately, and I don't know why, I don't know that sheriff's department or anything like that, but it seems like you need much more help than you're getting. And was his cell phone, was missing? Yes.
Yes. So his last cell phone ping, according to Box Elder, which, I don't know at this point, So they pinged it off of, it's like a 15.4 mile radius, right? So from that 15.4 mile radius, it does include where his grain truck is. So for us, you know, it makes sense that yes, he was there, because this other 15.4 mile radius that's in there doesn't really have a lot of headway to me why he would be there. And then when Elko started helping us, and I just cannot say how much they've helped us, that their sheriff sat with me all weekend, Saturday and Sunday, while we had people searching. He sat on the ground with me all weekend. And their one lieutenant, he showed me, this is how we do it, Candice. So this is the cell phone ping that we know. And we say within this circle, Dylan could walk if he was hurt. And within this circle, Dylan could walk if he had no water. And in this circle, Dylan could walk. So they're putting together all this stuff, and they're giving me this visual, which Box Elder never did. They didn't even, I mean, they just said here, 15.4 miles, and it includes this farm. So Elko's really opened my eyes on how we do this search grid as to where we believe his phone to be when that ping hit, because it does include the area where his grain truck was. So that's how Elko helped make this graph for me, and that's how we searched this weekend, was on the Nevada side that included that circle. Now, that's not to say we're not going to go out of that circle, but Nevada is starting with here's the small piece of the pie that's on our state side. So we're going to do this small piece of the pie, analyze it, send out our team and what we need to do, and then we'll move to the next piece of the pie. So they've really put into perspective for me how we need to coordinate this and what we need to do. Whereas the whole other time, we're out there with no law enforcement. My whole family's out there. Justin's got family and friends out there. And we're just literally left in the middle of the desert with no help or guidance. Literally, they just bailed on us.
Tell me about this man that he gave a ride to that he told you that he didn't.
Okay, so Wednesday, May 25th, I was at work at Costco. I got a phone call from Dylan, and he said, "You're never going to believe what happened to me, Mom." And I said, "Okay, what?" This is a common occurrence with him on "You're never going to believe." So he says, "I was coming back from Montella on Tacoma Road, and this man jumped out in front of me. He had no shoes on. He was beaten. He was bloody. He had scratches all over him. And he needed his phone was dead. He needed to charge his phone, and he wanted a ride." So Dylan told me that he got the phone charged. Chase called his father. Dylan heard him. They were on speakerphone, and Chase was all crazy, like saying, "Well, I'm looking for my kids. I was picking potatoes with them earlier. Somebody took my kids. Where's my pickup?" And the dad's telling him, "Your kids are here. Your pickup's here, and we've been looking for you for days." Now, what led to this whole thing with us trying to find Chase so bad is Dylan told me I kept my hand on my gun and I did not give him a ride. Since then, we have eyewitnesses out of the community that are part of, there's 3 of them and they're reliable, that Dylan did give Chase a ride. Now, I know why my son lied to me, because if he would have told me I gave this man a ride, Mom, he'd have got his butt chewed. He would have got his butt chewed. So he wanted to tell me the story about the guy coming out of the desert beaten and bloody, but he didn't want to tell quite all of it because he didn't want to take the wrath of Mom.
That's typical for a 19-year-old.
Right. Yeah. Nothing out of the ordinary. Yeah.
They omit certain things. I understand that.
Yeah.
And it seems like he's got a caring heart.
Yeah. So Dylan did give Chase a ride back into town. And then the eyewitnesses said, yes, we seen Dylan come back without Chase and go back out towards his farm. And then about a couple hours later, the eyewitnesses say Chase comes back out to the desert. He's running around talking about nonsense. He misplaced his bag. A white car comes out, picks him up, and they leave. The white car was his father. So he has since been, so let's get it all, so it's all out there. So we put up the $5,000 reward to find Chase. The reason we did that is because when I asked the locals about Dylan having this run-in with this man, all of them Chase. It was Chase. And then it went to the witch hunt. Chase took your son. Chase did it. Chase has him, over and over and over from everyone. So we put out this reward, like, we got to find this guy. What the heck happened, right? So it was, I want to say it was Wednesday or Thursday, the 1st or the 2nd. I'd have to go through my phone records to be sure, but either way, I want to say it was the 2nd. Chase finally reaches out to me. And he texts me and he's like, Candice, this is Chase, and I need to talk to you. And he's giving me all this information. He's like, I did not hurt Dylan. He did give me a ride. The story that he told me matched up identical with the eyewitnesses, 100%. So I'm like, okay. So he said, I have been trying to call in to Box Elder, and they will not return my calls or answer. So that night, Justin and I met with a detective from Nevada and from Box Elder that came out to the camp. I told him, I said, Chase is still texting me. He needs to talk to you guys. He can tell you where he was at, and it's a public place that should be on camera. I was told by the detective, yeah, we know he's been trying to call in all day. We just haven't talked to him yet. That's what I'm told. I'm like, are you kidding?
I'm sure that you were instantly enraged.
Oh, instantly. And my thing of it is, Chase came forward knowing he was going to go to jail. He's got warrants. He knew he was going to go to jail. I'm not saying here nor there that he doesn't know anything, but when I say we've cleared Chase, and everybody's had a lot of questions on that, so we'll clear that up. I mean, we have a family have cleared Chase because he is in custody. So we are no longer, we got our job. Well, we did their job. Once again, we found Chase for him. So us as a family, Chase is cleared off of our list because there's nothing more we can do there. We have to keep following any leads, any information we get. We can't focus on Chase where he's in county jail. He's there, so he can be questioned.
Right. He's no longer your concern. You found him.
Right. So let me tell you where the whole deal, and everybody, your listeners, they'll get this. So our whole thing with Dylan, maybe it was a scuffle with Chase or something, was nobody knew about the Chase story until I told them, and not having shoes on. So everybody, until we verified that Chase was given a ride by Dylan, we're thinking, okay, Dylan leaves Chase in the middle of the desert with no shoes. Did Chase come back for retribution where we found his boots and take Dylan to the middle of the desert? See how that kind of fits in?
Sure.
So then once we cleared that up, that no, Dylan gave Chase a ride, it kind of takes all the motive out of it. Like, Dylan's been out there for 3 years. Why would Chase all of a sudden decide he wants to hurt him or do something after he gave him a ride? That doesn't.
They knew each other?
They knew of, not, I'll be honest with you, Dylan never once said his name to me. So I think, everybody in town knew of Chase, and everybody in town asked.
What does Chase do around town? Do you know?
Well, he's basically, from what we're told by locals, so take it with a grain of salt. This is what we're being told. He comes into Montello, steals stuff, goes back to Ogden and sells it. And that's why everybody wants him out of town.
Gotcha. Okay.
So
he is a criminal.
Yeah. Oh yeah, absolutely. He's got a huge record, but that was kind of where the witch hunt led.
Sure.
Was everybody.
That also makes sense too, though, because, he was with him around the time that he went missing.
Well, not really. That was 3 days later. It was 3 full days. And Dylan had been seen in town after that, and we talked to him. Nothing was ever brought up again. So, I mean, realistically, it doesn't fit.
Sure.
It's just a piece of a puzzle that my son goes missing, and I know he had this encounter, and then I tell people about it, and then the locals take it and run.
Are there other vagrants around?
So that whole area is full of squatters.
Yeah.
People go to Montello and the Lucin area all through there because there's a lot of anti-government. There's a lot of underground bunkers. There is crazy stuff that goes on out there. People go to that area because they don't want to be part of normal society. And there's like, you fly over it, when we flew with York, and you fly over it, and I mean, they're everywhere. everywhere, and they just come out and squat wherever, and they claim the land, and they put their no trespassing signs up on it, and it's theirs in their mind, and you don't challenge them on it.
Right.
They're
Right.
just everywhere.
Okay. Yeah. So you have squatters, vagrants, thieves. It's just kind of like
the Wild West. They really kind of live by their own code of ethics. Like, you don't steal from this person because they provide something from the town, but this person's okay to steal from. I mean, they have their own way of what is right and wrong, and it has nothing to do with how most of us live in normal society. And I want everybody to know, do not get me wrong, there are some amazing people in Montello that we have met that have stepped out to help us and given us information. There really is, but it's just this new wave of people wanting to be, out of normal society. They've kind of come in and overtaken it on the good citizens that have always been there.
Right. I mean, yeah, it tends to be happening in a lot of different cities and towns as well. Has law enforcement does EquiSearch, do they need permission by law enforcement to come help you search?
Yes, and we have that now from both counties.
Okay, so that is good. I mean, that's a step in the right direction.
Yes.
So, but still no other assistance from law enforcement other than that.
No, Elko has been great. Like I said, once I went and met with Elko, and we sat down and we talked and we went through everything, and they didn't even really have all the information. So we went through it. I mean, it was 4.5 hours I sat with them. Elko has, and they've still, I mean, even, what is today? Today's Monday, right? Yeah. So my days aren't.
No, it's actually Tuesday.
Okay. Today's Tuesday. So even since I met with him on Friday, and they came out and helped me all weekend, we have still been in constant contact. They are still making more progress for us on stuff we wanted to get done than Box Elder has even attempted to do. And I'll tell you, and I've told everybody, and all my podcasts say the same thing, all my news interviews, I am fact driven. Do not lie to me. I am focused, and I'm going to find my son. So I met with the sheriff and Sheriff Potter out of Utah and his wife on Sunday out at Dylan's farm, and I was told that as of his third day missing, which would have been June 1st, that Box Elder detectives were told to treat it as a homicide. This is what I'm told by the sheriff. Well, if you were going to treat it as a homicide, if that was actually true, why did you not tape stuff off? Why were you not processing the scene? Why did you not take the pickup? Why did you not process a camper? They did nothing. So to me, that's just sending somebody out to shake hands and kiss babies and try to make you feel like they're doing something. And that will not appease me. Because if you're going to tell me you treated it as a homicide since June 1st, but you did not process anything, I mean, to me, I'm not law enforcement, but I'm also not a mother that you're going to pull the shades over her eyes and make her think you're doing something. That is not me. So in saying that, I just feel like Box Elder just keeps trying to appease me, and I just keep blasting them and calling them out on it because it's not going to work.
Right. I mean, I can't imagine honestly what you're going through. Every day must just feel like an eternity. And each day that passes becomes more and more desperate of a situation, honestly.
Yeah.
And
well, we lost all of our ground after we found the boots. After we found the boots, everything should have been processed and treated as foul play. That still has not happened. Dylan's camper still is not taped off or processed. The grain truck still has not been processed. None of that has been done.
How is that even possible?
That's a really good question. Obviously this is my first experience with anything like this, but
I mean, that's standard stuff 101. That's first day stuff.
Well, that's kind of what I had in my mind, but wow. I mean, and just, and going through and And when we realized the pickup had been washed and there was no tracks and everything, we immediately brought it to Box Elder Detective's attention. Immediately. You know what they did with it? A whole lot of nothing. Nothing.
So his place and truck has not been forensically analyzed.
Correct.
And hasn't been sent to his truck hasn't been sent to a lab, and his place isn't taped off, and nobody's processed that.
Correct.
So have you been inside his place?
Oh yeah. Yeah, we were all.
And what is it? What is it? Did it look out of sorts?
No, it looked like he hadn't been staying there in quite some time. It was absolutely Dylan, like empty hot dog packages, empty. But you could tell because he was staying at the Saddle Sore Bar. They had a camper on the side. He was staying there a lot because that's where he'd always go in and eat, and that's where he'd hang out when he. And so we know for a fact, and even Kurt, the owner, has verified that he would stay a lot in that fifth wheel. So that camp trailer was more of a I'm here during the day and don't really care, and open my package of hot dogs and what I eat, I just leave the rest. Like you could really tell that he hadn't really been staying there much. And the other thing about the camper that, I've really been hitting on and I really want to get out there is Karen, the grandmother, Dylan's grandmother. So on Sunday, when she still couldn't get a hold of Dylan, she called Dawn, and we'll keep this straight because we've released this and I want everybody to know. Dawn is the one that Dylan fired approximately 7 to 9 weeks ago. I can't remember the exact time frame, but that's about when it was. So Karen called Dawn and said, will you go check the camper, see if you can find Dylan? So Karen is told that Dawn went out there, looked all around the camper, looked in the pickup. Then when myself and my husband, Mike, landed out there, Jim was the first one to talk to us, and he said the same thing. We looked, we couldn't see if his guns were in his pickup. We looked all around the camper. So if that was Sunday and we were leaving prints on Monday, why were there no prints anywhere? There was nothing.
Gotcha. So
once again,
the implication is that did somebody wipe something down?
Either wiped it down or they didn't actually go out there. They lied, and I don't see why that would be.
Other than nefarious reasons.
Correct. Exactly.
And so this man that was fighting, so he was an employee for Dylan,
mm-hmm.
and he had to let him go. And was there bad blood?
So the story I know from Dylan, I got part of it. And once again, you got to remember, 19-year-old kid talking to mom. So whether or not I got the whole story, I don't know. But Dylan was, I guess, working on his washer machine. And so he'd come up to where we live in Hazleton, and we gave him a washing machine so he could wash his clothes because he had water and everything out there. And Dawn was working on the pump, and there was some argument about the pump was more important than the washing machine. And Dylan basically fired him like, I hire you to work on a pump. Don't tell me what I'm going to do. So you got to think, I don't know how old Dawn is exactly. I'm going to say 65 to 70. So you got 19-year-old kid telling older gentlemen what to do. Mm-hmm. Like that doesn't always go over so well with the generational gap. So sure. I just know that that's what stemmed it, was that Dylan was trying to get his washing machine hooked up and working to go so that he could wash his clothes. And Dawn was mad that he wasn't working on the pump with him. And that's all the details I have.
Mm-hmm. And has Dawn been spoke to?
As far as I know, we've spoken to him and he's been around the whole time, but, the police, they've never really done any, Box Elder hasn't really done any big interviews. They went in and interviewed Kurt with Elko County. I know Jim was picked up on a old warrant from November. Whether or not they interviewed him about Dylan, I don't know. Once again, that's a lack of communication that nobody tells me. They tell me there's certain things that we can't tell you that we're doing, and I 100% understand that. So what are you doing certain things, or, no, there's no direct answer.
So who's in charge of the investigation?
I am not 100% sure. We have went back we had one detective come out and and
That answer's terrifying, by the way.
yeah, we've had one detective come out. So he assured Justin and I, that was the same detective that told us, he knew Chase was trying to call in. So he assured Justin and I, I'll be out tomorrow by noon. I'm on this. I've been working behind the scenes. I'm doing everything I can. I'm going to pull an EFF. I believe it's called EFF. Don't quote me on that, but I think that's what it's called. It's a different type of pin that locates it a lot more accurately on the phone. I'll be out here by noon. We'll have that pin. I promise you we'll get a better location. Never talked to him again. Justin finally called him yesterday and chewed on him. But other than that, we never heard from the man again.
And what was his reasoning for not calling back?
I don't know. We haven't heard from him.
Oh, so Justin, Dylan's father, left him a message.
No, Justin, Dylan's father, chewed on him yesterday because we were trying to get EquiSearch and the dogs invited in. They didn't discuss really why it was just, we need this done. I mean, he did mention to him, you promised that you were going to come back, and you never did. And so then we get another detective that comes out. This has been the whole circle of what we've had. It's this absolute joke. And the other thing that they've done is they've separated Justin and I. They try to separate us. So we got some information that we're not even going to mention because it was completely false and stupid, and it was just ridiculous. But the detective takes Justin aside. So we're both there. We're both physically there on base, and we're working on this together. We're mom and dad. We're all in this. The detective takes Justin aside, tells him the information, comes and gets me. We go for a drive, and he tells me the information separately. Why would you do that? Why are you separating mom and dad? Just because we're divorced doesn't mean we got the common goal. We are trying to find our son. Right. There's no fighting. There's no arguing. There's no animosity. There's nothing. We are there trying to find our son, and they're separating us.
Not giving you information at the same time, taking you guys aside.
And it's a little bit conflicting information, because then Justin and I will talk, and he'll be like, well, that's not what they told me. And I'm like, well, that's not what they told me.
Right.
So it's like they keep us separate, and they're trying to cause this rift, and we're not letting them. It's absolutely unprofessional. It's unethical. They should not be able to do that.
Yeah, and this should be treated much different than it is being treated. I can't believe the things that you guys are having to, the hoops that you're having to jump through. It really makes no sense at all. The sense of urgency from you is top notch, but from people that are supposed to be agencies that are supposed to be helping you, it just seems like you're having to fight tooth and nail for everything.
Yeah. And like I said, once I got everything straight with Elko, they were basically being told, we don't want your assistance. So then once I am like, yeah, we do. So that got rolling. ISP, they've reached out. They're trying to assist in any way they can. We'll send down search and rescue. We'll do whatever. And everybody's just hitting this brick wall. I requested, as soon as EquiSearch wanted to come in, I requested that. First thing yesterday morning, I requested for the K9 group of Idaho to come in. I have had to send multiple emails and basically start getting nasty. I mean, my last email was, I was told so we're bringing a dog group in, and they do everything. It's all donated. The only thing we do is we cover their gas and their rooms, right? I mean, they don't make any money. We cover that. So I was told by the sergeant that, well, we got to get them, this is what they require, and we got to get that approved, and it's got to go to the higher ups. And we have dog teams here in Utah that we can get out that doesn't cost us anything. And I said, that's fine. Justin and I will cover the cost. It's not all they want is hotels and gas. And I told him, I said, well, I said, it just seems you guys are doing a whole lot of nothing. So if you got access to these teams, why aren't they out there? Why are we bringing in dogs that we found on our own and people that have volunteered to help us? Why aren't you doing it, Box Elder? You got the access, you're telling me. You're just not utilizing it.
Any good explanation?
No answer to the email. The answer to the email was, Candice and Justin, and Tori was copied on it. Candice and Justin have agreed to pay for your expenses. That was the response.
Mm-hmm.
So it just, and then they'll hear something like this, or like on Fox 13 News, and man, they are all over it. They're on the phone to us. They're all, and then they ghost again. It's a pattern we've been dealing with for 2 full weeks now.
Yeah, and when you say you send a nasty email, I don't know if there's anybody that would be listening to this that could blame you or not understand, and law enforcement included, that you're desperate mother searching for her son.
Well, and when I say
nasty,
yeah, and when I say nasty, I'm not cussing at them, or I'm just straight up calling them out. I'm not sugarcoating it. Like, why? I mean, I had a group text with a bunch of them last week, and I can't even remember what happened. I'd have to look at the text, because I told them we need to keep all this together. So I started a group text, and then one of the detectives said, I just kind of laid it out. I'm at dinner with my wife, and then I'll call you. And I said, I don't need a call. I'm done. I'll do it on my own. Like, it takes these nasty calling them out messages, and then they're like, oh, hang on, I'll call you. No, I can handle it and have it done before you guys can even think of an excuse of why you haven't done it. So that's why we're resourcing outside agencies. We're resourcing more help. Us as a family, us as a civilian, we do not need box elders' approval to basically take this over on our own, because that's what is happening.
Well, it doesn't seem like there's an investigation going.
No, and if there is, why aren't they giving us enough? Like, hey, this is what we're working on right now, and we're waiting for this information to come back, and we're going to interview somebody. We just haven't been able to locate them, but we don't get anything from them. We get a cat chasing their tail in a circle the way they talk to us, and it's just
and they are supposed to be the lead agency, though, right? I mean, that they're supposed to be on this case,
correct.
But they're not really investigating it,
as far as we know, and maybe they are doing some stuff behind the scenes. We don't know. But the fact of the matter is the physical evidence is not being processed, and that's the only way you're going to build a case. You need that physical evidence, and it is still sitting there unprocessed.
Yeah, the fact that the truck has not been processed, the fact that where he was staying hasn't been processed, it's unexcusable. I've never heard of such a thing. I mean, I'm sure that there are other instances, but
right.
As somebody who, talks to people a lot about these kind of situations, it's just I can't even fathom how that isn't top priority. I just don't understand it. I can understand your frustration and your anxiety and anger, and I can feel it, but I can also tell that you're going to stop at nothing to find your son.
I will find my son. And I almost feel like, how you hear in law enforcement, the family is jeopardizing the investigation, the family.
Sure.
I feel like law enforcement is jeopardizing my investigation. Box Elder specifically, not Elko or Idaho, but I feel like the roles have flipped, and it's like, you guys are hindering what I'm doing. You need to get away because you haven't done anything. So let me do it. Right. That's how I feel like it's flipped.
Not a good feeling.
No, it's absolutely the most. It's almost like an empty, like you're lost, and it took 4 days of into this search for me to put my level head back on and put my fact-based head back on and say, okay, you're not going to get help with this. We need to do it ourselves.
Yeah. Candice, you're an amazing mother. And, I wish I told you yesterday, hopefully we don't have to talk today because he'll be found overnight. And unfortunately that didn't happen, but maybe tomorrow, maybe today is the day. And you just keep fighting for him and shaking those trees and doing the media that you need to get the attention on the case, because it seems like that's all that's really going to keep moving this forward. And even if it's a slow crawl, Dylan is out there. People don't disappear just like that.
Well, and especially this kid, he didn't walk away from from what he loved, I'll tell you, my last conversation with him was Thursday, the 27th or 26th. And he said, Mom, he says, I got, he's talking to me about needing to get the rest of his crop in before the rain. And I think he was doing some skips and stuff too. And he says, it's going to grow. He says, it's sprouting. What I have in the ground's already sprouting. He says, it's, he's been at it for this is his third season. And you got to realize Dylan had to rip out all this ground. He had to till it all, get it all ready. He had to get his water rights. He had to put his pivot up. This farm has not been farmed for over 15 years. He had to rip out all the sagebrush. Like, he has been working 2 years solid. This would be his third year, and he's finally going to get a crop. He was so proud. He just loved it. And all of us, I mean, even I'll admit, me and his father both, we're thinking, okay, the kid's a little crazy. Like, why would you want to go farm out there? Sure. But Dylan's whole thing is nobody would bother him out there. Nobody was going to build houses around him and drive up the price of land. And he could grow and have a lucrative farm without ever having to worry about all the politics, all the crap that goes with water rights and all that stuff you deal with in the bigger communities. It was just Dylan out there. It's just him. He didn't have to worry about that.
What a life.
Yeah, he loved it.
That's incredible. Yeah, like I said, you just don't see that much anymore. You just don't, especially with a kid that age. I say he's a kid. I mean, 19 to me, I'm 36. Right. He's a kid. He's a kid, but he's a young man too. I mean, it takes a man to do what he was doing. I mean, that's a tough job, and so yeah, you're right. It just doesn't seem possible for him without his boots, without his truck, without his, where's his cell phone? Where's the credit? Is there a credit card transaction, debit card transactions?
No,
I mean, have you seen any of them?
And that's the thing. That's the other thing. So if it was, say one of the squatters coming out or somebody wanting to come rob him, he had access on his credit card to a large sum of money for parts and stuff, because parts are expensive. That was never used. The generators, the tools, the parts you can take off of tractors and sell, all this stuff, absolutely nothing is missing. Nothing.
Wow. Yeah,
so it's not somebody who was out there to try to take something from Dylan, because they didn't take anything.
Yeah. Yeah. It sounds like it's, there was an incident somehow, who knows, there's a million things, but you're right. That doesn't seem like the motive was robbery.
No.
But also the truck being returned to the spot, power washed, and with the seats, moved up. There's just so many things about this case that is so.
So we are having the pickup processed on our own by an outside agency other than Box Elder.
Do you have to pay for that?
We got a lot of volunteer work, and we got some stuff we can't quite release yet, but just so all the listeners know, we have taken that into our own hands. They will pull everything, the full ECM computer, all the data, everything that should have been done where the truck sat. Unfortunately, it's been driven 200 miles, and I was explained to by Elko County how it works. So even if his GPS is not turned on, which Dylan's was not, those radios in those Fords, the computer and the radio hold so many lines of data. Okay. So even if your GPS, even if none of that's hooked up, you're still going to get those lines of data, but they recycle. So they're constantly recycling. So you may, when it's full, it starts deleting. We will find out, but we may, depending on how much it holds, we may have deleted all of that by driving it back to Idaho Falls, not even knowing.
Yeah, I mean,
because we don't know that. So
of course,
the pickup never should have moved. And and this goes back to the sheriff telling me on Saturday that as of June 1st, the third day in the search, he told his detectives to treat it as a homicide. I have the text messages on Sunday, June 5th, where I asked if we could take the pickup, and yeah, no problem. It's yours. So if you had told your detectives to treat it as a homicide, why are you allowing us to take stuff off of the scene, off of what can be processed? So like I said, to me, that was just a lie. That was a shake hands, kiss babies. I mean, that's all it was. And I read right through it.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, nobody should have even been able to to touch the truck.
As soon as we found the boots, everything should have been roped off. Even all my family that was there, all of Justin's family that was there, we should have been kicked away from everything and said, no, you cannot have access to this. We need to process it.
And you would have been happy to hear that.
Yeah, we would have stepped away and we
Please do
would
your thing. Yeah.
do your thing.
Please.
Like,
Yes.
Yes, that's not exactly what we would want to hear it day one into the search by any means. But if they would have taken it there, all of us would have put our hands in the air and walked away.
They say, hey, go stay over there. We got a crime scene we're investigating. This is our crime scene. We'll talk to you shortly when we're done here. But it just, Dylan deserves better than that. And I hope answers come soon. Is there anything else that we haven't covered? I appreciate your time. I know you're super busy, and I'm glad that we can help get this story out there. So is there anything else, or have we pretty much covered everything?
I think we're gonna have some updates, and I'll stay in touch with you once EquiSearch gets out there tomorrow and the dogs, and let them do their thing, and then we'll probably update on Thursday. Awesome. I want to stress to everybody, if you don't hear me on a podcast or on an interview, because I am open to doing, even I found people that are reporting false information, and I contact them and say, hey, bring me on. Let's get this straight. So if it does not come from my mouth, it is speculation. And also, do not fall into a GoFundMe or asking for money to help find Dylan Rounds. Our family has not put anything like that out there. That is all a scam. There is not a single place that you can donate money to find Dylan Rounds that comes to the family. So please don't do that.
Yeah, I heard a little bit about something like that as well. So, folks, you heard it here. There is no GoFundMe that you can donate to that will help the family. There are scammers out there. It's a constant problem on the internet, YouTube, wherever, Twitter. So heed that warning from the mother of Dylan, that this is not something that you can donate to, at least at the present time. Candice, I wanted to tell you this one. I have been following and covering a story up in Canada, a little young man named Dylan Ealer, and he went missing from his grandmother's yard, and all they found his boots. And near a river, or on a creek bank, just his little rubber boots. And when I first read this story, I thought I was reading
the same story.
And I go, this is a 19-year-old in the United States. And I'm going, man, well, it just baffles me. It just, my mind, it gets so, the boot thing is just such a strange coincidence. I mean, obviously they have nothing to do with each other, but it's just, I was just taken aback that, stories like this happen, and it is so strange. But I thank you so much. We'll stay in touch. I know you're busy. Good luck in the fight, and if there's anything that we can do, we'll stay in touch, like I said, and we can see, however we can help. We would love to do that. Let us know if you guys decide to do a GoFundMe, and we will promote that healthy, in a healthy way. And whatever you guys decide to do, we're with you. So thank you again. It's nice to meet you. Unfortunately, I wish the circumstances were better.
Me too.
But maybe the next time we talk, Dylan will be with you, and we can all have a chat.
Yes, that would be amazing. Thank you for your time.
Thank you so much, Candice. You have a nice day.
You too. Bye.
Well, there you have it, folks. Very driven mother, a very loving mother, loving, driven family. Dylan deserves better. And that family is in our thoughts and prayers. So I want to thank her again for taking her time to come talk to me. On behalf of everybody here at the lab, I'm your host, Joshua Diaz. Thank you for being here. I don't know what else to say that hasn't been said. Honestly, listening to that a second time, going through it live is much different. And I scratch my head even more now. I hope that they get the answers that they're looking for. We'll stay in touch and we will bring you updates on this case. Thank you so much for being here.
There is no investigation. This boy has...
There's not, really? It is to me.
Don't say any F's and stuff.
But I have to put her on the side. And where
I'm gonna do what I gotta do for me and my boys and my kids.
Don't say any F's and stuff.
There is no investigation. This boy has...
There's not, really? It is to me. Right. Idiot.
I've done my best. It's hard, you know, that's real tough.
But I have to put her on the side and worry about the boys.
I'm gonna do what I gotta do for me and my boys and my kids.
Don't say any F's and stuff.
Live from the NBD Production Studios, you're in the lab with your host, Joshua Diaz.
There is no investigation. This boy has...
There's not, really? It is to me. But I have to put her on the side and worry about the boys. But I have to...
There is no investigation.
Don't say any F's and stuff.
But I have to put her... But I have to put her on the side and worry about the boys.